He thought she was sneaking out to betray him. But when he followed her, what he found behind that door broke him. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. The skyline glowed gold against a cloudless winter dawn. Inside the penthouse on the 82nd floor, silence ruled like a monarch. Every surface reflected light, the marble, the chrome, the carefully arranged art that no one looked at. Liam Hartford sat at the edge of his dining table, his phone in one hand, untouched coffee in the other. His routine was perfect. Oatmeal, emails, a video call at 7:30 sharp. Perfection was how he controlled chaos. He scrolled through reports, numbers, markets, projections, but nothing registered. His assistant's voice broke through the speaker. The Tokyo meeting's been moved to next Tuesday. Also, you have that foundation gala tonight. Cancel it, he said, his tone cool and measured. But, sir, you're being honored. I said cancel it. The call ended. His reflection on the darkened window stared back, sharper, older, emptier than he remembered. He rubbed his temple and glanced toward the far corner of the penthouse, where the faint sound of movement echoed, the rhythm of sweeping. Lois was already working. Lois Bennett moved like she belonged to silence. Every motion was deliberate. Wipe, fold, align, repeat. She'd been working for Liam for 6 months now, and in that time, they'd exchanged fewer than 50 words. She'd learned his rules quickly. No small talk, no questions, no noise. She respected that. She understood men like him, ones who thought emotions were weakness, that care was a currency they couldn't afford. Yet something about him always drew her eye. Not his looks, though he was handsome in a distant, cold way. It was his stillness, like he was afraid that if he moved too quickly, the walls around him would crack. Lois hummed softly under her breath as she dusted the piano he never played. It was an old hymn her mother used to sing. For a moment, her reflection met his in the glass wall. He didn't look away fast enough. A flicker, recognition, then nothing. He turned, and she bent back to work, heart quietly thudding. That evening, the mansion buzzed with distant life, staff moving in silent choreography. Dinner was ready by 7. Liam ate alone, eyes on his laptop as snow began to fall outside. Lois moved through the periphery, clearing dishes with practiced care. The smell of rosemary chicken filled the air, mingling with the faint hum of classical music from the ceiling speakers. You can leave early tonight, Liam said without looking up. Her hands froze mid-wipe. Thank you, sir. He nodded absently, but his eyes followed her reflection in the glass as she untied her apron and grabbed her worn-out coat from the rack. She moved quietly toward the elevator, then paused at the door. Her hand lingered on the button for a moment. Hesitation or fear? Then she was gone. Liam stared at the empty doorway, the faint sound of the elevator descending echoing in the vast apartment. He should have felt relief. Instead, he felt curiosity. Why did she always leave in such a hurry? Why, on nights like this, when the city froze, did she walk instead of taking the car service offered to her? He stood by the window, watching the snow swallow the skyline, and realized he wanted to know. A few miles downtown, Lois's world looked nothing like Liam's. Her apartment was barely 3 rooms, a narrow hallway, a faded sofa, and the faint hum of a heater struggling against the cold. Her younger brother, Daniel, coughed softly from the couch, wrapped in blankets. His face was pale, his frame fragile, but his eyes, gentle and bright, still carried mischief. You're late, he teased weakly. Traffic, she lied, smiling as she set down a paper bag. And you need to take your medicine before teasing your nurse. Nurse Lois, he grinned. Sounds like a superhero. Maybe the broke kind, she joked, brushing his forehead. You still have a fever. He coughed again, and the sound cut through her like glass. She didn't let it show. Instead, She opened a second bag, cheap soup, fresh bread, a small bottle of medicine she'd bought with the last of her paycheck. Later, when he fell asleep, Lois sat by the window, staring at the city lights. Her reflection looked tired, older than her 27 years. She whispered to herself, "Just a little longer. We'll make it." The clock struck midnight. Tomorrow, she'd do it all over again. Back in the penthouse, Liam walked through the echo of empty rooms. He stopped near the piano, where Lois had left a faint trace of her humming in the air. Something haunting, something human. He touched the piano key gently. A note rang out, crisp and lonely. He hadn't played since college, since before life turned transactional. He sat down, pressing another key, then another. A half-remembered tune filled the stillness, the same one Lois had hummed that morning. He froze, recognizing it without knowing why. He closed the lid abruptly, almost ashamed of the emotion rising in him. "What are you doing, Liam?" he muttered. He didn't have an answer. A week passed. Snow fell harder. Lois continued her quiet work, her departures growing later, her returns more tired. Liam noticed everything, but said nothing. One Friday evening, he finished a call early and caught sight of her slipping out again. Same coat, same hurried steps, same soft hum under her breath. Something in him stirred. Logic whispered to ignore it, but curiosity, loneliness, won. He grabbed his coat, his car keys, and stepped into the night. From a distance, he followed her through the falling snow, his car lights dimmed. Through the frost of his windshield, he saw her cross streets, board a late-night bus, and disappear into the heart of a darker part of the city. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He told himself it was a concern, but deep down, he knew it was something else, something that terrified him more than he'd admit. What would you have done in his place? Walk away and respect her privacy, or follow and uncover the truth? Tell me in the comments. Does curiosity justify intrusion when the heart feels something it can't explain? It was nearly 10 p.m. when Lois slipped out of the mansion again. The staff had long gone, the halls silent except for the hum of the security system. From his office, Liam watched the elevator numbers descend. Something inside him shifted, not suspicion anymore, but a deeper pull, a question that refused to die. He grabbed his coat, left the elevator, and stepped into the icy night. The city swallowed him whole. The snowstorm had eased into a fine mist, the air thick with cold. Lois's figure moved quickly down the street, her steps confident, as if this path was one she'd walked many times before. Liam followed from a cautious distance, his collar turned up. The streetlights flickered above him, painting her silhouette gold, then silver. He tailed her through Midtown, then to a quieter neighborhood where the streets narrowed and the glamour of Manhattan gave way to cracked pavement and flickering neon signs. For the first time in years, Liam was seeing his city, not from the glass of his penthouse, but from the ground. He passed old diners, shuttered shops, a stray dog sniffing trash. The air smelled of salt and steel. Every sound felt amplified. The hiss of a bus brake, the crunch of snow underfoot, Lois's soft cough as she turned down a side street. "Why are you doing this?" The question whispered inside him, but he didn't stop. Lois disappeared into a narrow apartment complex. Old brick, cracked windows, the kind of place where the heat barely worked. A flickering bulb illuminated a rusted door marked 34B. Liam parked half a block away, heart pounding, breath visible in the cold. He waited, watching the windows. Minutes passed. Then light flickered in one of the rooms. Through the half-drawn curtain, he saw her, Lois, removing her coat, revealing a faded uniform beneath. She wasn't meeting anyone. She wasn't stealing. She was changing clothes. And then he saw the truth. Lois stepped into another room, carrying a tray of medicine and a damp towel. On the bed lay a young man, frail, pale, coughing violently. She sat beside him, wiping his forehead, murmuring softly, "Breathe, Danny. Just breathe, okay?" Her voice cracked, but her hands never trembled. She spooned him soup, coaxing him to eat, then pressed a kiss to his forehead. The moment was simple, devastating, human. Liam froze, shame creeping up his spine. He'd followed her expecting deception. He'd found devotion. She wasn't sneaking away for pleasure or money. She was saving someone she loved. He leaned against the car, heart hammering. The weight of realization hit him harder than any business failure ever had. This woman, the one he'd barely spoken to, the one he'd underestimated, carried a strength he couldn't name. And what did he have? Numbers. Buildings. A life built on control and fear. Back inside her apartment, Lois sat quietly after her brother fell asleep. She stared at the unpaid medical bills spread across the table. The numbers blurred through her tears. She whispered, "I'll find a way. I always do." Outside, unseen, Liam pressed his palms against the steering wheel, fighting the urge to walk in and offer help. He couldn't. Not yet. Not like this. For the first time in years, he felt small. He turned the key and drove off, headlights slicing through the snow like guilt made visible. The drive back was silent. Manhattan's skyline glowed in the distance. The towers he'd built now looked hollow. He parked in his underground garage and sat for a long time, the hum of the engine steady as a heartbeat. He remembered the way Lois's hands had moved, tender, steady, selfless. He thought about the last words his ex-wife had thrown at him before she left. "You don't know how to love anything that doesn't serve you." The words had stung then. Tonight, they burned. Liam killed the engine and stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. "You don't deserve to follow her," he muttered. But he already had. And something inside him had cracked open, something he couldn't seal again. The mansion felt different the next day. The air carried her scent. Soap, lavender, and the faint trace of the cheap detergent she used. Lois moved about her duties as usual, unaware of what Liam had seen. She greeted him quietly. He nodded, his eyes lingering longer than they should have. Every time she passed, he wanted to speak, to say he was sorry for doubting her, for following her. But the words caught in his throat. He washed her hands, the small scar near her wrist, the tired curve of her smile. For the first time, he saw her, and that terrified him. That night, Liam couldn't work. His mind replayed every second of the previous night, the dim room, Lois's voice, her brother's frail cough. He poured himself a drink and walked to the window. The city glittered below, beautiful and indifferent. He whispered to the glass, "How long have you been suffering alone, Lois?" He didn't expect an answer, but he felt the question echo through the empty room. Something had awakened in him, not just guilt, but care. A strange, raw tenderness he hadn't felt since he was a boy. And once awakened, it would not go back to sleep. A few miles away, Lois prayed beside her brother's bed. Her eyes were tired, but her faith was steady. "God, just give me strength. That's all I ask." Her brother stirred and murmured, "You'll be late for work again." She smiled faintly. "Mr. Hartford won't notice." She didn't know he already had. The next morning, when she arrived at work, Liam stood by the window, staring out at the snow. "Lois," he said suddenly. She froze mid-step. He never said her name. "Yes, sir?" He hesitated. "You've been working here for how long now?" 6 months. "Do you like it?" She blinked, unsure how to answer. "It's work, sir. I'm grateful for it." He nodded, his expression unreadable. "If you ever need anything, anything at all, you can come to me." Her brows furrowed slightly. "That's kind of you." "It's not kindness," he murmured. "It's overdue." She didn't understand. Not yet. But his tone lingered with her the rest of the day. And for the first time since she'd met him, she sensed something real behind his quiet, a crack in the man of marble and glass. Would you forgive someone who invaded your privacy if what they found made them change? Share your thoughts in the comments. The morning sun glowed faintly through the glass walls of the Hartford penthouse. The city below sparkled, but inside, silence pressed heavy. Liam stood by the window again. Same view, different man. The image of Lois feeding her brother refused to fade. He'd thought that understanding her struggle would ease his guilt. It didn't. It only multiplied. She entered quietly, dusting the mantel. Their eyes met. "Good morning, sir." "Morning." A pause too long. Awkward. She turned back to her work. Liam cleared his throat. "I increased the staff's health coverage," he said casually, not looking at her. "It includes family members now." Her motion froze for half a second. "That's generous of you." "It's overdue," he replied softly. She nodded, resuming her task, but her hands trembled slightly. She didn't want charity. She wanted dignity. And she couldn't understand why his words affected her at all. That evening, Liam's assistant, Clara, noticed his distraction. "You've been off lately," she remarked during a meeting. "Just tired," he replied. "We're human," she said, smiling gently. He glanced up, surprised by her tone. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you finally look like you feel something again." Her words struck deeper than she intended. Because she was right. For the first time in years, his emotions didn't obey him. After work, he found himself wandering aimlessly through the mansion. Every room looked the same. Perfect, sterile, lifeless. The only thing that felt alive here was her presence. At home, Lois sat beside Daniel, who slept fitfully. The medical bills were still piled on the table. She stared at them with glassy eyes, whispering prayers between shallow breaths. She hated that part of her wondered if Liam Hartford had something to do with the anonymous payments recently credited to the clinic. She couldn't confront him. What would she even say? "Did you pay for my brother's life?" The idea both angered and touched her. "People like him don't do kindness without cost," she whispered. But the memory of his softened tone earlier that morning, the hesitation in his eyes, haunted her. A few nights later, Lois worked late again. The mansion was quiet, the air heavy with the scent of lemon polish and winter air. As she wiped down the grand piano, Liam entered the room silently. For a moment, he simply watched her reflection on the polished lid. "You play?" he asked suddenly. She jumped slightly, startled. "No, sir. My mother did. I just listen. Would you like to?" She frowned. "It's not my place. It's just an instrument, Lois. Not a throne." Her eyes flicked to his, uncertain, searching. Slowly, she sat, pressing a single key. The note echoed, fragile and beautiful. Liam leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "That song, you hum it sometimes." "What is it?" "An old hymn. My mother used to sing it when things were hard. Do you still believe in it?" She smiled faintly. "Belief isn't the hard part. Holding on to it is." Something in her voice cracked open a memory in him. He wanted to tell her he'd heard her sing before, that he'd followed her, but he couldn't. The truth would destroy whatever fragile connection existed between them. He took a step back. "You should get some rest." "You too, sir," she said gently. The moment lingered like the note of a fading song, beautiful and unfinished. The following week brought chaos. A major deal at Hartford Industries was on the verge of collapse. Liam's partners accused him of losing focus, of getting soft. He snapped at everyone, except Lois. When she passed through the halls, he fell silent, as if afraid she'd see the cracks in his composure. That night, during a dinner meeting, a colleague remarked crudely, "Your maid must be working miracles. You've been distracted lately." The comment hit him like ice. His jaw tightened. "Watch your mouth." The table fell silent. The man laughed awkwardly. Liam's reaction confused even him. He didn't know why he cared so much, or why anger felt like protection. Later that night, he found Lois cleaning the library. The firelight painted her face in gold and shadow. He lingered in the doorway. "You shouldn't work this late," he said quietly. "You shouldn't either," she replied without looking up. He almost smiled. "Touché." A moment passed. "Lois," he said softly, "if I ever cross a line, tell me." She paused. "Why would you?" "Because I already have," he whispered under his breath. She didn't hear him, or maybe she pretended not to. But when she looked up, his expression startled her. Regret. Deep, unguarded regret. Something in her chest tightened. She turned away before he could see it. Days passed in quiet tension. Every glance, every word felt charged. Lois found herself anticipating his presence, hating that she did. Liam found excuses to linger in the kitchen, to ask about trivial things, the coffee, the weather, the staff. The distance between them shrank without a word. But with closeness came danger. Both of them knew it. Lois reminded herself of her place. He was her employer, powerful, untouchable. She couldn't afford to blur the line. And yet, when she caught him smiling faintly at something she said, her heart betrayed her. That night, Liam dreamed of his late father, the man who'd taught him to hide every soft emotion under ambition. Never let people see you bleed, his father's voice echoed. He woke at dawn, restless. He wandered the penthouse and found Lois standing by the window, watching the sunrise before her shift began. "You're up early," he said. "Habit," she replied softly. "It's quiet before the city wakes up." He stood beside her, their reflections side by side in the glass. For a long moment, neither spoke. The city burned gold before them. Then she said quietly, "You ever get tired of being alone up here?" "Every day," he admitted, surprising them both. Their eyes met. The silence that followed was heavier than any conversation. And for the first time, Lois saw the man behind the money, and Liam saw the woman behind the uniform. Before she left that morning, Lois dropped a folded piece of paper on his desk, a simple thank you note for the staff insurance. He unfolded it later that day, staring at her looping handwriting. "For whatever part of this kindness came from you, thank you. Some things can't be repaid, but they can be remembered." He folded it again, slipping it into his jacket pocket. He didn't realize it then, but he'd keep that note for the rest of his life. The morning began like any other: coffee, silence, routine. But by afternoon, the city was in chaos. A sudden winter storm rolled in fast, swallowing Manhattan in white. The streets were closing, trains shutting down, and phone alerts blared across the screens. Emergency weather advisory: stay indoors. By 6 p.m., the wind howled like a living thing. Most of the staff had already gone home. Lois had stayed to finish the evening shift, promising herself she'd leave before the snow got too heavy. But when she finally reached the glass doors, the blizzard outside was unrecognizable. Snow whipped violently against the windows, erasing the city skyline. The elevators had shut down. Public transit was suspended. Liam's voice echoed from the hallway behind her. "You're not going anywhere tonight." She turned. He stood there, tie loosened, sleeves rolled, holding his phone that displayed the storm alert. "Sir, I'll be fine. I've walked in worse." "You won't this time," he said firmly. "It's unsafe." Her pride bristled. "I can't just stay here. It's inappropriate." "Lois," he said, softer now, "please. Just tonight." Something in his tone, not commanding, but pleading, made her pause. After a long silence, she nodded. An hour later, the storm knocked out the power. The lights flickered, then died, plunging the mansion into dim, emergency glow. The wind outside wailed against the windows. Liam lit a few candles in the living room. Lois sat stiffly on the edge of the couch, wrapped in a blanket he'd insisted she take. "You didn't have to do this," she murmured. "You didn't have to stay," he replied, settling across from her. The fire crackled between them. For a while, neither spoke. The sound of the storm filled the space, an uninvited orchestra. She glanced around the massive penthouse, its luxury rendered almost useless in the dim light. "It's strange," she said softly, "how big this place feels when it's quiet." "It's always quiet," he said. "That's the problem." Her eyes flicked to him. For once, there was no steel in his voice, only weariness. Hours passed. The storm raged on. The clock ticked past midnight. Lois sat closer to the fireplace, hands outstretched to the warmth. Liam poured 2 glasses of whiskey, a peace offering. "I don't drink," she said gently. "Then hold it." For warmth. He handed her the glass, their fingers brushing. The contact sent a pulse through the silence neither dared acknowledge. Finally, he spoke. "You have a brother." Her eyes darted to his, cautious. "I do. He's sick." She froze. The words were simple, but her heart dropped. "How do you know that?" He hesitated, too long. "I found out," he admitted quietly. She set the glass down sharply. "You followed me." The room fell silent except for the fire's crackle. "Lois, you followed me?" Her voice broke. Hurt, not anger. "Why would you do that?" He rose, taking a step toward her. "Because I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That your maid was hiding stolen silverware." He flinched. "No. Afraid that you were suffering and I wouldn't notice." Her eyes glistened. "You had no right." "You're right," he said, voice raw. "I didn't. But I couldn't stop myself. I needed to understand you." She turned away, arms wrapped around herself. "And now you do. Congratulations." The storm outside roared louder, shaking the windows. Inside, the air between them vibrated with unspoken emotion. "Lois," he said quietly, "when I saw you that night, taking care of him, it changed something in me." She shook her head. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Turn my pain into your redemption story." He took a slow breath, the truth cutting through his pride. "I deserve that. But it's not a pity, Lois. It's—" He stopped himself. She turned to him, tears shining in the candlelight. "You think because you have money you can fix everything. But some things don't need fixing. They just need to survive." Her voice broke on the last word. For a long moment, neither moved. Then, something shifted. Liam stepped closer. The firelight flickered between them, shadows dancing on their faces. "You're right," he whispered. "But maybe I don't want to fix you. Maybe I just don't want you to face it alone." Lois looked up, meeting his eyes fully for the first time. The cold businessman she once feared was gone. What stood before her was a man stripped of armor. For a moment, she saw his loneliness, not just in his words, but in the quiet ache in his eyes. "Why me?" she asked softly. "Because you're the only person who still looks at me like I'm human." The words hit her like a breath of warm air in winter. She wanted to deny it, to hide behind propriety, but her heart betrayed her. "You shouldn't say things like that." "And yet, I mean every one of them." Silence stretched again, fragile and electric. The storm raged on, but inside, something gentler stirred, something alive. They sat in silence for hours after that. Lois drifted to sleep on the couch, blanket around her shoulders. Liam stayed awake, watching the fire burn low, listening to the rhythm of her breathing against the wind. He could have left her there, but instead, he brought another blanket and draped it gently over her. His fingers brushed her hair, then stopped. "I'm sorry," he whispered. To her, to himself, to the boy he used to be. He stayed there until the storm began to ease, the first light of dawn barely glimmering through the fog. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. When Lois woke, the storm had passed. Pale sunlight streamed through the glass, turning the melted frost into diamonds. Liam was asleep in the armchair beside her, head tilted back, one hand still loosely clutching her note from weeks ago. Her eyes softened. She rose quietly, covering him with the same blanket he'd given her. She whispered, "Maybe you're not the man I thought you were." He stirred slightly, half awake. "And maybe you're everything I didn't know I needed." She froze. Their eyes met. For a long, suspended second, the world felt smaller. Just them, the fading storm, and the quiet promise between their unspoken words. Drop your thoughts below. Can redemption and affection truly share the same breath? The storm had passed, but its echo lingered. The morning light spilled across the penthouse, soft and forgiving. Yet the air between Liam and Lois buzzed with unspoken words. Lois prepared coffee quietly. Liam sat at the counter, pretending to read the paper. Neither could meet the other's eyes. Finally, she broke the silence. "About last night." He looked up sharply. "You don't need to explain." "I wasn't going to," she said gently. "I just wanted to thank you for letting me stay." He nodded. "You didn't have a choice." Still, she said softly, you didn't have to care. Something flickered in his eyes, regret, longing, restraint. Lois, he said finally, I owe you the truth. Her hands froze mid-motion. What truth? He exhaled slowly, as if preparing to bleed. He rose from his chair, pacing. The night I followed you. She stiffened but didn't interrupt. I told myself it was business, that I needed to know if something was wrong with my staff. He laughed bitterly. That was a lie. I was lonely, and I think I saw something in you I didn't understand. Lois crossed her arms, defensive but curious. And what was that? He met her eyes. Grace. The kind that doesn't ask for permission to exist. She looked away, heart pounding. I thought I'd forgotten what it felt like to care about someone without needing something from them, he continued. When I saw you with your brother, his voice caught. It reminded me of my mother. That made her look up. Your mother? He nodded slowly. She was kind. Too kind for the world my father built. She used to visit the staff in our old house, sit with them, listen to them, like their stories mattered. My father hated it, said it made us weak. He swallowed hard. When she died, I swore I'd never let anyone make me feel again. I buried myself in work, in control, in silence. He looked at her then, I stripped bare. Until you. Lois felt her throat tighten. She wanted to say something, but words failed. Her heart warred between empathy and fear. You shouldn't tell me this, she whispered. I'm your employee. You're not just that, he said firmly. You never were. The silence that followed was suffocating. She turned back to the counter, gripping its edge like an anchor. You don't understand, she said. Whatever you think you see in me, it's not light. It's survival. He took a tentative step closer. Then show me what survival looks like. She turned, anger flashing through her tears. You want the truth? Fine. She drew a trembling breath. My brother, Daniel, he's the only family I have left. Our mother passed from the same condition he has. Our father left when we were kids. She paused, swallowing hard. I was 15 when I started working, cleaning houses, doing laundry, anything to keep the lights on. I promised my mom before she died that I'd take care of him. Her voice cracked. I've been keeping that promise ever since. And every time I think I'm close to saving him, the bills rise and the hope shrinks. Her hands shook, and Liam instinctively reached for her. She stepped back, blinking fast. Don't, she whispered. Don't look at me like that. Like what? Like you pity me. I don't, he said softly. I admire you. That broke her guard. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. You shouldn't, she murmured. If you knew the things I've had to do just to keep him alive, then tell me. He interrupted, voice gentle but urgent. Tell me everything. She turned away, facing the window. Snow still clung to the edges of the city skyline. When the bills got too high last year, I took a night job, cleaning a club downtown. It wasn't safe, but it paid cash. Her voice trembled. I hated it. The men there, they'd look at me like I was furniture. But I kept going because Daniel needed treatment. She wiped her eyes quickly, ashamed. I used to leave after my shift here, go straight there, and come home at 3 a.m. That's why you followed me, isn't it? You thought I was hiding something ugly. Liam's voice broke with guilt. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Now you do, she whispered. The words hung heavy between them. Then, to her surprise, he didn't retreat. He stepped closer, his tone steady, reverent. You're the bravest person I've ever met, Lois. She shook her head. No, just desperate. Desperation doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. The air between them softened. He moved closer, slow enough to give her space to retreat, but she didn't. Why are you telling me all this? She asked. Because I want you to know I see you. Not as a maid. Not as someone I need to fix. As someone who reminds me that even broken people can build something real. Her breath hitched. Don't say things like that unless you mean them. I mean every word. The world outside was frozen white, but the warmth in that room felt alive, trembling, dangerous. For the first time, Lois didn't feel invisible. She felt seen, and it terrified her. The moment was shattered by the sound of the doorbell. Liam frowned. At this hour? He opened the door to find Clara, his assistant, drenched in snow, holding a thick folder. "Sorry, sir. You weren't answering your phone. The board needs your signature tonight. The merger deadline's midnight." He hesitated, glancing back at Lois. The spell of vulnerability snapped. The world of money, power, and cold reality came rushing back. "Right?" he said curtly, taking the folder. "Thank you, Clara." Clara's eyes flicked from him to Lois, her brow furrowing slightly. Curious, maybe protective. "Everything all right here?" "Fine," Liam said sharply. Lois stepped back, suddenly feeling small again, like she'd wandered too close to a world that wasn't hers. When Clara left, the silence that followed was heavier than before. "I should go," Lois said quietly. "Lois, it's fine, Mr. Hartford. I overstepped." She grabbed her coat. He reached for her arm gently. "You didn't." Her voice trembled. "Maybe not tonight. But if I stay, I will." She left before he could answer. Liam stood alone in the vast living room, the echo of her footsteps fading down the hall. The fire had gone cold. The papers on the table blurred as he stared at them, realizing how meaningless every deal, every title, every dollar felt without her warmth. He whispered to the empty air, "What am I doing?" And for once, the echo didn't answer. Have you ever walked away from someone not because you didn't care, but because you cared too much? Would you risk your heart again if it meant facing old wounds? Share your thoughts in the comments. Days passed. Lois didn't return to work. Liam noticed immediately. The penthouse, though immaculate, felt lifeless. The air carried her absence. No faint humming, no quiet footfalls echoing down the marble halls. He told himself she was taking time off. He even pretended he didn't check her personnel file every morning to see if she'd resigned. She hadn't. But she hadn't called either. Every night he stood by the window, staring at the city lights that once felt like his kingdom. Now they looked like 1,000 closed doors. Finally, on the 5th night, he couldn't take it anymore. He called his driver, then changed his mind, grabbed his own coat, and drove himself into the snowbound city, toward the small address burned into his memory. The building looked smaller than he remembered, older too. The brick was chipped, and the front steps groaned under his weight. He hesitated outside the door, marked 34B. He could hear faint coughing inside, Daniel's. He knocked gently. When Lois opened the door, shock flickered across her face. "Mr. Hartford?" He gave a small, awkward smile. "Liam. Please, just Liam tonight." She stared for a long moment, unsure whether to close the door or let him in. Finally, she stepped aside. The apartment was warm but worn, faint smell of soup, books stacked in corners, blankets piled on a thin couch. Daniel looked up from bed, curious. "You're the boss?" he asked weakly. "Something like that," Liam said with a soft grin. Lois folded her arms. "Why are you here?" "Because I couldn't not be," he admitted quietly. She sighed, her exhaustion visible. "You shouldn't have come. This isn't your world." "It's not about worlds, Lois," he said. "It's about people." He glanced toward Daniel. "How's he doing?" "Better," she said. "But we're managing." He nodded slowly, then pulled an envelope from his coat. "I know you'll hate this, but I want to cover his next round of treatment." Her eyes flashed. "No. I told you, I don't want charity." "It's not charity," he said softly. "It's gratitude. You've given me more than you realize." Her voice trembled. "You don't even know me." "Then let me," he whispered. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly, she sat down. Lois warmed the last of her soup and insisted he share it. "You can't come into my home and not eat," she said, half smiling. They sat at the small table, two worlds folded into one room. The soup was thin, but it tasted like something real. "You cooked this?" he asked. "Don't sound so surprised." "I'm not," he said gently. "Just grateful." Daniel watched them quietly, a knowing glint in his tired eyes. "He's not what you said he'd be," he teased his sister. And what did she say I'd be? Liam asked, amused. Cold, Daniel said simply. You don't look cold. Liam smiled faintly. That's because your sister's been teaching me warmth. Lois looked down quickly, pretending to fuss with the dishes, but her blush betrayed her. As the night stretched on, conversation softened. The lines between boss and employee blurred, replaced by the fragile ease of two people daring to be human together. Liam told them about his mother, how she used to sneak him chocolate after piano lessons, how her laughter filled rooms his father wanted silent. Lois listened quietly, then smiled. She sounds like someone who saw the good in everyone. She did, he said softly, even in people who didn't deserve it. Maybe that's what love really is, Lois murmured, seeing what's broken and choosing to stay anyway. He looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time, he saw hope, not just pain, shining in her eyes. Daniel fell asleep early, leaving them in the quiet hum of the small apartment. Lois noticed Liam's eyes drifting toward the old keyboard against the wall. It's my mom's, she said. Daniel plays sometimes. Do you? He asked. Not well, she laughed softly. He moved closer. Show me. She hesitated, then sat down, pressing a few hesitant keys. The melody was familiar, that same hymn she'd hummed in his mansion. He joined her, pressing the harmony, his touch steady where hers trembled. The sound was imperfect, but beautiful. Their shoulders brushed. She looked up. He smiled, not his polite, corporate one, but something quiet and real. The song faded, but neither moved. The air between them buzzed softly, like the pause before something inevitable. Lois, he whispered, you've changed me. No, she said gently. You're just remembering who you were before the world made you forget. When he finally stood to leave, snow had started again, light, gentle flakes drifting through the streetlights. Lois walked him to the door. Thank you for coming, she said softly. Thank you for letting me in, he replied. He hesitated, then pulled a small box from his pocket. Not expensive, but carefully wrapped. What's this? She asked. A promise, he said. She opened it to find a tiny silver pendant in the shape of a piano key. You don't have to wear it, he said quickly. Just keep it, so you know someone sees you. Her voice wavered. Liam, you can't keep doing things like this. Then tell me to stop, he said, eyes searching hers. She tried. She really did. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, she whispered, Good night. Good night, Lois. He stepped into the cold, but for the first time in years, the night didn't feel empty. The next morning, Lois arrived at work. Liam was already there, standing by the window with 2 cups of coffee. He handed her one without a word. She accepted it with a soft smile. They worked in silence, but this time, it wasn't uncomfortable. The air between them carried warmth, not tension. Every glance, every shared breath, felt like a secret. The unspoken truth, something fragile, something beautiful, had begun. Tell me in the comments, is love rediscovered sweeter than love found for the first time? The next week unfolded like something fragile but golden. Liam and Lois moved around each other with quiet understanding, not as employer and maid, but as 2 people daring to learn trust. He'd begun delegating more at work, spending evenings at home. She'd begun smiling again. Even Daniel, during her nightly calls, noticed the light in her voice. You sound happy, her brother teased. Maybe I'm just tired, she said with a grin. You've been tired your whole life, Lois. This sounds different. She didn't deny it. But beneath that warmth, something unspoken lingered, a tension neither of them could quite name. One morning, as she polished the grand piano, Liam appeared behind her. I need a favor, he said. Yes, Mr. Hartford. Liam, he corrected softly. Always Liam when it's just us. Her cheeks flushed. All right, Liam. He smiled faintly. I have a charity gala tonight. Big investors, media, the usual noise. I'd like you to come. Her eyes widened. Come? To the gala? As my guest, he said simply. You've worked hard. You deserve one night where you're not invisible. Lois stared at him, stunned. You can't be serious. I am. She laughed softly, shaking her head. You don't understand how people will look at me. Then let them look, he said. Maybe they'll finally see what I do. Her heart raced. Liam, this could ruin your reputation. Maybe that's exactly what needs to happen. Against every instinct, she agreed. The gala glittered like a fever dream. Chandeliers blazing, champagne flowing, laughter echoing off marble floors. Lois arrived in a simple navy dress, her curls pinned up, her eyes luminous with nervousness. When Liam saw her, his breath caught. You're stunning, he murmured. And you're overdressed, she teased lightly, trying to hide her nerves. For a moment, everything felt right. They danced once, awkwardly, then beautifully, the world fading around them. But peace doesn't last long in a room built on power. Halfway through the evening, Clara, Liam's assistant, appeared, tension in her eyes. We need to talk, she whispered. He excused himself, leaving Lois by the buffet table, feeling suddenly small among glittering gowns and diamond smiles. From across the room, she heard it. The whispers. Isn't that his maid? Unbelievable. You know these billionaires, always chasing an exotic fantasy. Their laughter stung sharper than glass. Lois set down her glass, heart pounding. She wanted to leave. But before she could move, she caught sight of Clara, standing close to Liam, speaking urgently. Then Clara reached out and touched his arm. He didn't pull away. To anyone else, it was harmless. To Lois, it was confirmation of what she'd always feared. She didn't belong in his world, and he never truly meant it. When Liam returned, he saw the shift in her face immediately. Lois, don't, she said quietly. You don't owe me an explanation. He frowned. What are you talking about? This, she gestured around the glittering room. All of this. I was never supposed to be here. I'm a charity case you decided to dress up for a night. That's not true. Then why does it feel like it? Her voice cracked, and several guests turned to look. He reached for her arm. She stepped back. Lois, listen to me. No, Liam. You listen. You followed me once because you didn't trust me. Now I see why. You only trust people who stay beneath you. The words hit him like a slap. He whispered, That's not fair. Neither is this, she said, voice trembling. Good night, Mr. Hartford. She left before he could stop her. Back at the apartment, Lois collapsed onto the couch, trembling. Daniel tried to comfort her, but she shook her head. I was so stupid, she whispered. I thought he saw me. Really saw me. Daniel frowned. Maybe he does. Maybe you just got scared. No, she said, tears falling. People like him don't fall for people like me. They feel guilty for them. Her phone buzzed, a message from Liam. Please talk to me. You don't understand. She deleted it without reading further. Liam returned to an apartment that suddenly felt like a museum. Quiet, soulless, haunted. He poured himself a drink, then another, but the burn didn't help. Clara knocked once and entered. You all right? No, he said flatly. She sighed. You shouldn't have brought her. The board's already talking. Let them talk, he snapped. Liam, you can't save everyone. She's not from our world. He turned sharply, anger flickering in his eyes. Maybe that's why I need her. Clara hesitated. Then go to her. Before pride ruins something real. He looked out the window, snow falling like quiet forgiveness. But he didn't move. Not yet. 2 days later, Lois left her resignation letter on his desk. No signature, just 2 sentences written in graceful handwriting. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. But I can't live in a world where I'm a secret or a scandal. I need to be free. He read it 3 times. Then he folded it gently, placed it in his breast pocket, and whispered, Then I'll learn what freedom really means. A week passed. Liam buried himself in work again, but his reflection haunted him. Every time he looked in the mirror, he saw her, the way she laughed, the way she believed in goodness even when she had none left to spare. He tried to forget. He couldn't. One night, he sat at his grand piano, the one she used to polish every morning. He pressed the first key, the one shaped like the pendant he'd given her, and a single tear slipped down his face. "You were right," he murmured. "I only trust what I can control, and I just lost the one thing I can't." What's harder, forgiving someone who hurt you, or forgiving yourself for hurting them? Share your thoughts below. The snow had started to melt, but inside Lois's heart, winter remained. She returned to her routines, early shifts at the diner, late nights caring for Daniel. But everything felt hollow. Daniel noticed immediately. "You're quiet," he said one evening. "I'm always quiet." "Not like this," he said softly. "You used to hum when you cooked." She smiled weakly. "Guess I ran out of songs." He set down his spoon. "You miss him?" She froze. "Daniel, you can lie to everyone else, Lois, but not me. You miss him." Her eyes stung. "It doesn't matter. That world isn't mine." "Who says? Him or you?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. That night, she found the small piano key pendant on her nightstand. She tried to throw it away, but she couldn't. She held it tight, whispering into the dark. "Why did you make me believe you cared?" Meanwhile, in the penthouse that used to echo with her laughter, Liam was unraveling. He went to work, signed deals, attended meetings, but it was mechanical, empty. He found himself glancing toward the kitchen each morning, half expecting to see her humming. He missed her silence most of all, the kind of silence that didn't feel lonely. One night, he met Clara for dinner, purely business, but she noticed his distraction. "You still haven't reached out," she said. "She doesn't want to hear from me." "How do you know?" She left. Clara sighed. "Maybe she was waiting for you to follow." He looked up, eyes weary. "I followed her once. It changed everything. But this time, I don't even know where to start." "Start where it ended," she said gently, with honesty. The next morning, Liam drove without direction until the city turned to suburbs, then to quiet streets lined with melting snow. He stopped outside 34B. His hands trembled as he knocked. Lois opened the door slowly, shock flashing across her face. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you." "You shouldn't be here." "Maybe not," he said softly. "But I've spent every day since you left wondering how to make this right." Her voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered. "You can't fix everything with money, Liam." "I'm not here with money." "Then what do you want?" "Forgiveness," he said simply. He took a deep breath. "That night at the gala, Clara touched my arm because she was telling me about an emergency with the foundation. That's all. But when I turned around, you were already gone." She stared at him, her defenses wavering. "Why didn't you come after me?" He exhaled, voice trembling. "Because I've spent my whole life controlling everything. But you? You make me lose control. And I was afraid." "Afraid of me?" she whispered. "Afraid of needing you." Her breath hitched. "You think needing someone is weakness?" "I used to," he admitted. "Until I met the woman who taught me strength isn't about walls. It's about choosing to stay even when you're scared." Tears welled in her eyes. "Liam." He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You once told me survival isn't light. But I see now it is. You've survived more than I ever could. You made me remember what being human feels like." She turned away, torn between heart and reason. "Liam, this won't work. Our lives don't fit. You're a man who made mistakes," he said softly, "and who'd give everything he is just to start again with you. You don't even know what us would look like." "No," he said, "but I know what life looks like without you, and I can't live it again." She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "You don't understand what you're asking. Loving you would mean walking into a world that's never wanted me." "Then let's build our own," he said. "One that doesn't care about what they think." Silence filled the room. Thick, trembling, electric. Finally, she whispered, "You'd give up everything? For something real?" He nodded. "Every last thing." Before she could respond, Daniel's voice called weakly from the bedroom. "Lois." She rushed to him, but he was pale, trembling, struggling to breathe. Liam followed without hesitation. "I'll call an ambulance," he said, already dialing. Within minutes, the apartment filled with paramedics. Liam stayed by her side the entire time, his hand firm around hers as they watched Daniel being taken away. At the hospital, hours passed in tense silence. Liam sat beside her, never leaving. Finally, the doctor emerged. He's stable for now, but we'll need to continue treatment, soon. Lois broke down, covering her face. I can't keep doing this, she sobbed. Liam knelt beside her, eyes fierce. Then don't do it alone. As dawn rose outside the hospital window, Lois looked at him, the man who had once represented everything she resented, and saw the truth. He wasn't trying to save her anymore. He was trying to stand with her. You really came back, she whispered. I told you, he said. I'm done running. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, slowly, she reached for his hand. If I let you in, she said, you don't get to leave when it gets hard. I won't. Promise. On everything I have. She smiled faintly through her tears. Then maybe we start over. From where? From honesty. Weeks passed. Daniel recovered. Liam quietly paid for his treatment, not through charity, but through a foundation in Lois's name. She returned to work, but everything had changed. Their silences were softer now, their glances warmer. One evening, she found him at the piano again. Play something, she said. He smiled. Only if you sing. She laughed. You'll regret it. Never. The melody rose, the same one she used to hum while cleaning. This time, they finished it together. After the last note faded, he turned to her. I used to think love was a weakness, he said. But it's the only thing that ever made me strong. She smiled softly. And I used to think love was for people who had time for dreams. You changed that. He brushed a stray tear from her cheek. Then let's stop thinking and just live. She leaned into him, the city lights flickering behind them like stars. For once, the silence between them didn't hurt. It healed. Winter loosened its grip on the city. The snow melted into silver puddles, the trees began to green again, and for the first time in a long time, the world looked like it was waking up. Lois stood on the balcony of the penthouse, sunlight warming her skin. Below, the hum of the city carried a different rhythm, alive, forgiving, full of promise. Liam stepped beside her, two mugs in hand. Still think this view belongs only to the rich? She smiled faintly. Maybe not. Maybe it belongs to whoever remembers to look. They stood in silence, the kind that felt like home. I used to think happiness was something you earned, Liam said quietly. Turns out, it's something you share. She turned to him, eyes soft. And love, he said, is when sharing stops feeling like sacrifice. They'd spent the last few months slowly rebuilding, not the old dynamic, but a new rhythm. Lois had taken charge of Liam's charitable foundation, focusing on community outreach for underprivileged youth. She visited shelters, schools, and care homes, the same places she once worked to survive. Now, she came as someone who could change them. Every evening, Liam waited for her at the piano. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they didn't talk at all. They didn't need to. It was no longer about him rescuing her or her humbling him. It was about meeting each other halfway. Of course, not everyone approved. When the board discovered Lois's name attached to the foundation, they called an emergency meeting. It's unorthodox, one of the directors said. Her background is exactly why she belongs here, Liam interrupted firmly. This foundation exists to bridge divides, not reinforce them. Another man sneered. And what about your relationship with her? The media could. The media, Liam said calmly, can say what it likes. I stopped living for appearances the day I started living for purpose. Silence. Then, slowly, one by one, heads nodded. When he left the meeting, Lois was waiting in the lobby, uncertain. How bad was it? He smiled. Bad enough to be worth it. That evening, Liam surprised her with something small but profound, a deed to a community arts center in Harlem. I bought this years ago and never knew what to do with it, he said. Now I do. She opened the folder. Inside was her name listed as co-director. Tears filled her eyes. You're serious? Completely. You said music helped you survive. Let's make sure it helps others, too. She threw her arms around him, an instinct, not a choice. He held her tightly, whispering, "This is yours, Lois. You earned it." "No," she said softly. "We earned it." Daniel's health improved steadily. He began taking lessons again, and soon, he was composing small melodies. One afternoon, he played for them both. The tune was the same one Lois used to hum, but now it carried hope. When the final note faded, Daniel grinned. "Told you I'd write something good someday." Liam smiled. "You did more than that, Daniel. You gave this family a song." Lois turned to him, eyes shimmering. "Family, if you'll have me," Liam said softly. She didn't answer with words, just took his hand and held it to her heart. Weeks later, they stood at the new community center's opening ceremony. Cameras flashed, children laughed, and the walls echoed with life. When Lois finished her speech about resilience, unity, and love that defies fear, Liam stepped forward, nervous but certain. "You've taught me more about courage than a lifetime of success ever could," he said into the microphone. "And I can't imagine building another day of my life without you in it." Gasps rippled through the crowd as he dropped to one knee. Lois froze, tears flooding her eyes. "Lois Bennett," he said, voice trembling, "you saved me from myself. Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving I was worth saving?" The crowd disappeared. It was just them, two souls who'd seen each other at their worst and still chose love. She whispered through her tears, "Yes. 1,000 times yes." The applause thundered. But for them, it was silent, because the real moment was in their eyes. It was small, intimate, and beautiful. Daniel walked Lois down the aisle, his smile bright, his step steady. Liam waited beneath an arch of white roses, nervous as a boy. When she reached him, she took his hands. "You still think love is control?" "No," he said, smiling. "Love is surrender, and I've never been happier to lose." They laughed softly as the officiant began. When the vows came, Lois said, "You once followed me because you didn't trust me. Now I know, love means following someone because you trust they'll lead you home." Liam's voice trembled. "And you once told me survival isn't light. But you were wrong, Lois. You are light. You saved my soul." When they kissed, the crowd cheered, but more than that, they felt. It wasn't wealth or power on display. It was grace. Months later, Lois sat at the same piano where she once polished dust. This time, she wore no uniform, only a soft smile and a gold ring that caught the morning sun. Liam joined her, coffee in hand. "You realize you've completely taken over my house," he teased. "Our house," she corrected. He grinned. "Our house." Daniel's laughter echoed from the next room. Music drifted through open windows. Life was finally as simple and profound as it was meant to be. She began playing, the same melody that had once filled empty rooms. Only now, it wasn't a prayer. It was a thank you. Later that evening, they stood on the balcony again, looking out over the city. Lights flickered below, but they weren't cold anymore. They were alive, like 1,000 stories still unfolding. Liam wrapped his arms around her. "Do you ever think about that night?" "The night you followed me," she smiled. "Every day. If I hadn't, you would have found me anyway," she said softly. "Because love always finds what it's meant to heal." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "You changed everything, Lois." "No," she said. "We did." And somewhere far below, a street musician played their song, proof that love, once found, never truly ends. Tell me in the comments, do you believe love can redeem even the most guarded heart? And if you were Liam or Lois, would you have followed love, even when it scared you?
Thank you for watching the story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's more intriguing than you can ever imagine. So, do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.